So you're probably wondering why I've got a picture of a saber-toothed tiger attacking a caveman. Well, the reason behind that is I want to welcome you to the module all around the psychology and physiology of communication. And this video, I really want to share with you just one key concept around what it really means in terms of how we should communicate to have the maximum impact. And that's down to the physiology and psychology that's helped us to survive all these thousands and thousands of years. So the way this works is that the way we have survived really is that we have this mechanism inside us that watches out and observes danger, and when we perceive danger, then we do a certain thing. So the way the brain works is that there's a very complex communication system that happens inside the body, and what happens is that the brain and the heart are communicating, and the way the brain is actually developed is a bit like an onion where it has three layers. And you have the first brain, if you like, which is a very simplistic part of our brain. It's like a processing machine. And what it does is it controls things like our heart rate, our breathing rate, and all the drugs and chemistry that's inside our body. Wrapped around that is what we call our emotional brain. So the limbic system is the emotional brain, where our memories are stored. You know, the fact that when you're, I don't know, for example, for me, when my mother phones and she's got a certain tonality, it takes me right back to childhood, and I feel like I need to duck because of the certain tonality that she has, and obviously I've done something wrong and probably haven't seen her or spoken to her for a while, so I'm getting that bit of that feedback from her. But it's a tonality that's inside my limbic system or emotional brain that's causing me to react in that certain way. And the third part of the brain is the bit that we're paid for and employed for, of course, is the logical part of the brain, the thinking part of the brain. And what happens, of course, is the way that we perceive this danger and survive is that when we see danger, what happens is we get this communication signal in the body, and it says, you know what, there's danger there, don't think. So example, if I use the analogy of the saber-toothed tiger, and that's why I've got the picture there, is that, you know, if you're walking through the jungle and all of a sudden you see this saber-toothed tiger running towards you, the last thing you probably do is sit down and do some critical reflection, get the team together, do a bit of narrative and get a spreadsheet out and work out and calculate the time the tiger's going to take to get to you. You probably react, don't you, in terms of, you know, straight away either you turn around and leg it back to the cave and get safety, or you might turn around and fight the tiger, or you might freeze, or the fourth thing that could happen is you might get together as a flock, as a tribe, if you like, and try and confuse the tiger, and it doesn't know which one to go. And it's one of those four things, and those things happen automatically. And the interesting thing about it is what happens is we perceive danger, get a load of drugs get pumped into the body from the reflex part of the brain, so adrenaline, cortisol, and what that's designed to do is create what's cortical inhibition, which is around breaking down and stopping the actual thinking part of the brain from working, because if you think, you're dead. So it's an interesting concept, and the reason why I'm sharing that with you is because often when we communicate, what we're actually doing, we're actually being a saber-toothed tiger. We're actually surprising people and shocking people with new information, and particularly as a leader, what we tend to do is that we have a situation, we think about response and we communicate, but we actually don't take people on a journey. So a lot of tools and techniques we're going to share with you, particularly when we start to look at the influencing and impact module a bit later on in the series, is that there are tools that actually are designed to be collaborative and actually take people on journeys in order for them to actually understand the communication. Because one of the challenges we have, and with all that, you know, where you've had that email which switches off your thinking part of the brain and you write a response and you hit send and you think, oh, I shouldn't have sent that, and you responded from an emotional way. So what happens is, we see danger, we get that terrible message or communication, our brain switches off, our emotions go on, our logic goes off, and we respond in an appropriate way. So good communication, really, and communicating to engage, is all about how we take people on a journey so that we don't shock them. So a simple example of that is around quite a lot of people, when they're trying to communicate, they'll think about the point they're trying to make, and they'll make the point, and then they try and justify it afterwards. In terms of influencing, you can flip that around. So if you make your example first and give some examples and some understanding behind it, and then make your point, you're more likely to be successful. So example is, I often share a story about when we're teaching negotiation around the importance of focusing on interests, not positions. And as soon as I say that, people have got no reference point behind it. So a better way to engage people with that would be to talk about an example or a story. So the example I share is, I'm recording this at the beginning of September, so it's the end of the summer holidays. And those of you who got children will know how demanding it can be over the summer holidays with young kids in the house. And you imagine you've got two children and they're in the kitchen and they're fighting over the last orange in the orange bowl, and you just had enough, and you go up there and say, what are you fighting about? And they go, oh, I want the orange. And the other one says, no, I want it, it's my turn, and all that sort of stuff going on there. So what most parents would do, of course, and when you think about perhaps what you do, is they tend to cut the orange in half and they give half each. And when you analyse that, what's happened is that that's typically in negotiation we call that a compromise, and we split the difference, all that sort of stuff. And the problem with that, of course, is that we haven't taken into account interest. And if you'd asked a few more questions, you find that one of your children has been watching a cookery program on their iPad or YouTube or whatever, and it's all about baking. And really what they want is they want the rind, the rind from the orange to be able to go and do their baking. And the other child is really thirsty and hungry and wants the fruit. And when you know that information, of course, you can then make a better decision. And the idea behind negotiation is that a position is, I want the orange, and interest is the reason why you want the orange. And if you then negotiate and communicate and discuss around the interest, you're more likely to get to a more effective solution. So the way I teach that, of course, is I give an example first and then I make my point, and that is a more powerful way to communicate. So when we start to look at influencing and impact, you'll start to see that all the tools really, they're all based on this physiology and psychology of change around not shocking people. You want to make sure that people have the logic part of their brain switched on so they can start to hear and understand what you're saying. So example of that would be, I know when a couple are in arguments and they're starting to lose it and it's all emotional, the worst thing you can do, isn't it? If we say, look, you just need to calm down, you're likely to get a punch on the nose or it explodes into more emotion. And the only thing you can do there, of course, in that situation is where one person is emotional, is to use empathy, which is another emotion, which is to understand where they're coming from. So I think the secret, of this module and the secret of communicating with engaging is around how I then take people on a journey to get them on board. So when you have a look at the Simon Sinek video, you'll see that he talks about the way that leaders inspire action is they start with why. And when you think about that concept, what you're actually doing is you're taking people on a journey about why you need to do what we're talking about. So in the military, for example, the example we had, of course, is in Mission Command was around the fact that we'd always talk about the why. So, for example, if I was leading a patrol around the village, I'd start by saying something like, we're going to do a patrol around the village, and the reason why we're doing that is to make sure that the local villagers feel really, really safe. And so we understand the why we're doing it, which means then we can put together an effective plan. It's a bit like in meetings, we've talked about the purpose of meetings. It's important to understand the why first. So that's the concept really of the psychology and physiology. Obviously it's a massive topic, and I just wanted to get that one point across, is that when we're communicating, make sure that we don't shock and we don't surprise people.